Given two characteristics of that molecule. This end is what we call nonpolar, which means it won't interact with water, which always means it doesn't hydrogen bond. This part over here, which will be exposed into the environment, is going to interact with water. We call it polar. The way that we illustrate phospholipids, like a balloon with two strings, okay? And so the round part represents the phosphate part, the little sticks represent the fatty acids. And so anyway, the membrane itself is arranged into, again, a phospholipid bilayer. And so there's a layer here, fatty acids toward each other. And that's the way all cell membranes are organized. Now, the thing about the membrane itself, we have to begin with a polar-nonpolar kind of characteristic to the membrane. The part here in the center, which is nonpolar because of the fatty acids, is characterized as being hydrophobic. And that just basically means it's going to exclude water, it's not going to interact with water. Whereas the part out here on the surface, and again this is exposed to either the exterior environment or the cytoplasm on this side, is characterized as being hydrophilic. Because it will interact with water. Again, hydrophilic right here as well. Okay, and so that's the basic organization of the cell membrane. This is again to illustrate that as the fatty acids come together, they basically exclude water. Again, the term that describes that is hydrophobic. And again, nonpolar also means that. Whereas the surface layer, which is the phosphate and whatever else is there, exposed into the cytoplasm and the outside, that's water there, hydrophilic, will interact hydrogen bond with water. And so we're taking these two phospholipids here and just blowing up right here to illustrate that there is no water in the center of the membrane. But we have hydrogen bonding here on the cytoplasm side between water molecules and the phosphate and whatever else is on the surface. Same thing happening out here in the environment itself. All right, so again, the main structure is the phospholipid, and again, they do form a bilayer, and they do create a membrane that's hydrophobic in the middle, hydrophilic on the surface. Now, in addition, we do have proteins, and proteins are going to either be kind of extending from one side of the membrane through the middle and out the other side, or they're going to be sitting kind of on the surface here of the membrane. Run another one back up in here. And so anything on the surface is characterized as peripheral. Same thing down here, peripheral for the protein. Whereas the protein that extends from, again, the outside surface through the membrane to the inside surface, characterized as integral. Or you can also call it transmembrane, because it does go completely across the membrane. And there are quite a number of functions associated with these proteins. We'll look at a couple of those here in a second. And then otherwise, let me just say that the third component we have is cholesterol. And so when you look at a membrane representation, you'll see these like little wedges. Just draw a couple of these right in here. Cholesterol molecules. And so cholesterol, of course, we talk about typically in the sense of bad stuff because too much in the blood messes you up, but it is an integral component of the membrane. Okay? So the mosaic part of the fluid mosaic means we've got three things: phospholipid, protein, and cholesterol. The fluid part means that they kind of shift around position laterally within the plane of the membrane. And so anyway, basic membrane structure. This is to illustrate